Hey Kelly Jack, this is your snatch analysis from 2 days ago. Let's watch it in full speed before we talk. Okay, cool. So my overall first impressions are one, we got to work on your setup a little bit, tighten up your back. Doesn't look like there's any tension or tightness there. It's slightly round to begin with. The one thing you do very well here, not the one thing, but one thing in particular that's very noticeable is the bar is extremely close to your body. So that's a really good principle to always remember in Olympic lifting, or really uh, most anything that involves weight. Um, okay, cool. Let's start. So, trying to get to the point right before you start moving. Okay, so here's your setup. Where your hips are at, this is a pretty good setup. I'm really glad that your eyes are up. Um, Your hips are, they're probably in a pretty dang good spot. The one big thing I like, well, here's one good thing to really point out. It looks like I could slide a piece of paper underneath your heels, which is good. So the bar's starting a little too far forward on your foot. Like I always like to cue people to cover their last shoelace. So it's maybe about an inch and a half in front of that. I'm not sure if that would be fixed if there was weight on the bar. But I like that you're thinking about getting the weight on the front of your foot. Ideally, it should be on the back of the ball of your foot, if you can imagine that. It's kind of like right underneath that first or second line of shoelaces. So that's pretty good here. The one thing we do have to work on in your setup is like your back tightness, kind of like I prefaced earlier. As we can see right there, it's not super tight and engaged. So in Olympic lifting or most lifting really, you want to have a really straight back. So it would be ideal. Well, that's not even on your body, but if your back was that straight. So even with people with very muscular backs, they're able to straighten it out, even though there might be some bumps along the way because of muscles. It's easy to see when your back is tight and engaged. The one thing I want to definitely mention here is that you don't want it hyperextended. So you don't want it to look like what we're doing, like when we do like arch rocks, for example, or I don't know, if you can think of like a banana shape upside down, you don't want to hyperextend your back, just like you don't want it round how it is now. You don't want it round the other way either. So that's the first thing to fix. Let's draw a line on it. Okay, cool. So that is roughly the angle of your back. So hopefully that should stay the same until you minimally pass your knees and get to the hang position in the snatch. So as we can see here, your back angle stays pretty consistent, but it immediately has to straighten out. So this is what your back should look like when you start. All that movement of your back under tension is going to make you lift less, it's going to make you less efficient, all sorts of things. So you're finding some sort of tightness, some tension in the system, like your back mid-lift. You should start that way, and it'll make everything a lot easier. Looks like you're heading towards a pretty good hang position. Alright. So this is a pretty decent hang position. The barbell is in front of your body a tiny bit. Oh, I forgot to tell you about the vertical line. Never want to cross that vertical line there. That's kind of like a golden rule of Olympic lifting. The camera did move a tiny bit, but we're going to at least use it for a reference point. So the barbell's already a tiny bit away from you. It'd be nice to see that super close to you. Overall, this is a pretty decent hang position, though. Ideally, the weight would be more in your heels, but it's pretty dang good. Your toes are lifted up. You know, I really don't have any complaints about this hang position. You could be slightly more on your heels, like with what I mean by that is if your shin was vertical like that, your hamstrings would be even more engaged than involved in this lift, which would make you lift bigger weight. But hang position's pretty decent. An issue I do see coming along here, before I get to that, your back angle hasn't changed. super significantly. So that's pretty good. It really should be locked in and exactly the same here, ideally. There's not much movement, so that's a good thing. The issue now that's coming is as soon as you pass your knees, you are pulling with your arms. So that should not happen. You should, like the barbell should still be, right now the barbell would be like approximately right there-ish. Instead, it's all the way over here because you're relying almost completely here on your arms. You're just pulling it overhead. Your legs are not extended, so you're not jumping it over your head at all, which you really need to do. Your legs are much stronger than your upper body, and they're necessary. You really got to get them involved in snatch and clean and jerk to move any weight efficiently and to move like a lot of weight relative to you. So that's super important. So you just pull really, really early. Here is when the barbell would be leaving that. So it would be just leaving your hip. So you pulled really, 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 really early. This is a pretty decent position that you're in. You're getting pretty tall. You could definitely jump even taller by totally extending your knee right here, totally extending your ankles. I think is why that's not happening is because you pulled really early with your arms and because it was slightly in front of you like we discussed just a minute ago. Here's something really cool that I liked. Your footwork is really good. So as soon as you leave the ground, which you do, so that is good. And you're not jumping like you're about to dunk a basketball, which is awesome. You slam your feet down so your entire foot comes in contact with the ground. A lot of times we see people landing on their tippy toes. They'll miss forward. It's good that you're slamming your heels into the ground. I think we've discussed this. If not, that's something you're doing well naturally, so that's cool. I just wanted to comment on that. Receiving position of the barbell looks pretty dang good. Oh, it's not over the barbell. But anyways, you can get the impression from this line just to the right of it that it's almost right over the center, the midline of your body, so you shouldn't experience a lot of wobble here. I don't think you do. You don't. This is the last thing that I'm going to talk about here. This little, see how your hips kind of shift? So we're still coming down. Your hips have to shift backward. Partly that's because the lift was a little bit forward, but it does bring me to one point that I really want to talk to you about. We need to start working on some hip mobility for you so that eventually you'll be able to catch a lift below parallel so that your hips are below your kneecap. Anyways, you're making a ton of really good progress. Obviously, you're doing really well. Let me know if you have any questions here. Let's watch it one last time, full speed with no lines on it. All right, happy lifting, Kelly Jack.